Hello, everybody. So this is new. I decided to do a live instead of doing the videos that I post on a weekly basis. So just a little word to say that I've been very busy this summer, so I haven't been able to do so much during the summer and the early fall. But now I will be doing this live on a regular basis. And feel free also to go to the C-Suite group inside Meetup. This is where I have a lot of information as well. I do regular workshops once a month. So this is on Meetup, and the group is called C-Suite Place. So you have it also on my website, isabellelitzler.com, the direct link to go and register for those workshops on a monthly basis. So that's the regular events happening every month. Going from this month, we have one on Wednesday, so feel free to register. I will also post below the link. Feel free to register for that. So today is about resume and cover letter. This is something that is still relevant. Basically everything is changing. Now we have more and more online with social media. So my main message to you today is about keep going with the resume and cover letter, but also consider social media as a way to get opportunities. So basically you need both now. You need to have a great resume and cover letter, but you also need to have your online presence with your LinkedIn profile and all other social media. And I know depending on your type of work, you may be familiar with LinkedIn, but the other social media like Instagram or TikTok, that might still be new to you. I know personally I'm not on every single platform, but I try to be active on at least LinkedIn and YouTube. So pick at least one or two would be a good way to increase your job search strategy. So the cover letter and basically the resume are still relevant today. Why? We haven't found anything better yet. There's a lot of apps, so that helps as well. Now a lot of employers are using also different ways. They're using sourcing to find candidates, but in the end, the resume is still the piece of information that gets into the recruiter's hand at the end, or the hiring manager. So there's no better replacement as of today for a resume. Now, I've been talking to clients, and it's interesting to know that every time I talk to someone who managed to get a job, they always end up telling me that it's because they know somebody and they happen to go through the network. And then by the end, because the person already knows them or they were referred, they get the job. So, and then the resume just ends up being an administration piece where you're already validated because of the network, and then you end up in front of the hiring manager. And by that time, they already purchased your profile. They just need to sign off on you and get you on their payroll. So that's the ideal situation where the resume is just an administrative piece. And basically, that's what I really encourage you to do, is to get to the point where people talk about you, refer you, and want you on board, so that by the time you get in front of the hiring manager, the resume is more of a, yes, just check, check, and get on payroll. Now, for those of you who are using the resume still as a application where you find online positions and you want to apply, I would say that you need to really put a lot of emphasis on having a great resume. So today, what I want to share with you, first thing is, well, where do you start with the resume to build a good resume? So there's a lot of online tools now where you can automatically put together a resume. One of my favorite tools is Canva. And the reason why I like Canva is because you can do a lot of things with it. You can do posts, but you can also do great resumes that look fantastic. Now, the only thing with Canva is that when you download the resume, it comes in JPEG or PDF. You can't download an editable resume. So it makes you go to the platform each time that you want to edit, which in a way is not so practical. I mean, you have to increase the size, etc. But I still find that Canva is a good resource. The other one that's very good is Word. It sounds very basic, but there's a lot of templates just on the Word software. So if you have the MS Office, which I would think probably most people have, then if you look into templates under Word, you have a lot of things, and those are editable. Now, you also have new platforms that you can find online where you purchase a monthly fee and you can edit resumes. that's also a resource. But I would say if you're looking for the free information, then I would say Canva is very good. And then Word. Again, very simple formats. I know there's a lot of things right now with resumes where you can get very graphic. And on Canva, for example, you can get very graphic resume. I would say it really depends on what is your profession. Now, if you're working as a graphic designer, or you're looking for a job that maybe is a little bit more creative, then having a very graphic designish type of resume might be fit. But if you're looking for an accountant or maybe an auditor, or more, I would say, profession where it's a little bit more conservative is the word I'm looking for, I would say something simple would probably be better. So for templates, I tend to recommend, out of doubt, go for something that's very nice looking, clean cut, just something very basic in the end, where you have the basic information, meaning that you will have, your information on top, and then it flows very nicely. Now, I do have some Swiss templates that I've built for cover letters and resumes. I offer those to people who book a session with me. The link will be posted below if you want to book a session, and we can work on your personal situation. And then I would provide the templates for cover letter and resume, which are Swiss style, meaning that you have the right information in the right places already. So it's a little bit less work for you to have to work on that part. So finding templates is easy in a way, but finding the right template is a little different story. Finding the template that is easy to edit. I always put a lot of emphasis on that, because you don't want to spend, I feel very sorry when people contact me and say, I spend a day to do one resume. There's a way where you can automate, where the parts that you want to change each time is easy to do. So that's what I've built on my template, for example, where you only work on certain parts. So that's really number one. Is it easy to edit type of template, a template that's nice to look at, but where you don't go overboard with graphics. And again, the trend now is to have this very graphic style, which can work well if you're in a creative position, but it can work a little bit less well if you're looking for more conservative jobs. And again, you have to think about, is that going to fit the culture where I'm going to work? So some cultures can be a bit more trendish. If you work again in very creative space, startup, etc. Now, if you're going for the big banks where it's a little bit more conservative, again, you may want something a bit more that fit that style. And that's really where the branding is important. And that's also feedback I received from my clients, is that the information that we're getting from me to match the color code with the type of organizations they're targeting worked very well. So if you're looking at a website and you see a color code with blue, for example, or with red or what have you, then you just mirror that in your resume, and that's going to make it a lot easier for you to get hired. Again, it sounds very basic, but those are little things that you can do if you're formatting, where you're matching the culture of the company, and that's going to help you get the job. So again, that's more for the general idea on what kind of template, what would work well. So keep it simple, keep it easy to edit, keep it also very easy format. The color code needs to match the culture of the organization. So that's basically the main guideline that I wanted to cover. Now, number two is what kind of format is appropriate. And there's a lot of school of thoughts. And what I wanted to say is that there's no right and wrong. There's not going to be a perfect thing and everything else is wrong. There's a lot of resumes out there that could basically, again, fit the culture of where you're applying. So the format is also going to depend. In Switzerland, there's parts of Switzerland where they want your full history since the beginning. In the Swiss German part, it's a little bit more like that, where you need to really have everything that you've done a little bit more detailed. Now, if you're in the French part of Switzerland, Francophone part, 2 pages, I think, is the maximum I would go with. And I usually discourage people to have more than 2 pages. And the reason is, again, it's a little bit longer to read. People don't have time. And I would still challenge the 2 pages. And I challenge it all the time, where I really go and talk with clients to see if it's really necessary to have 2 pages, because a lot of information could probably, again, it's my my opinion, but I really think that most of the information now could go into one page, depending on, sometimes I see people who work for the same company, but they've built a different portion for each part of each job that they had within this company, which I tend to regroup into one piece to ease the reading of the resume. So there's little tricks that you can do on the resume to make it easy to flow, easy to read, and not have so many words in it. So again, more is not better. It's actually the opposite, where less is better and easy to read is better. So I would say that when you're working on a resume, the maximum number of pages should definitely be 2 pages. And if you're an executive and you want to really have highlights, it's even advised to have a one-pager type of resume. And again, it depends on the organization that you apply with. Is it really relevant experience? Because sometimes you've changed careers. And then again, for people who change careers, it's a whole different philosophy there, where you could probably regroup a lot of the information from the previous career, which is no longer relevant for what you're looking for. So it's really a tailor-made situation for each individual, depending on what are your objectives. Is your past or your past experience serving you for what you're doing right now? Is it actually going to, I call that in communication, it's really confusing communication, where you're diluting what's important. So you really have to think about it in a different way than just updating it with information, but looking at it more from a project perspective. What is my project? What do I want to achieve now? And based on that, work backwards is, what do I need to have on my resume? Do I need to have all this information? Can I regroup certain parts? Can I tailor certain parts so that now it's a little bit clearer on where I'm going with my resume? So all that is going to be important to work on for you. And again, it is tailor-made. So in terms of formatting, it's really going to serve your project. Now, in terms of formatting, there's always something that I'm very consistent with, is the top part of the resume, which should always have your details and a profile. I know most people don't have a profile. They go and have their address, and then after that, they have sometimes a title header, and they jump right into experience. I would really argue to have you add a profile with key skills, because in a snapshot at the top of the resume, people can see that this is who you are, this is where you worked in general. Again, that's what you do with a general profile, and this is what you're looking for. And these are your top skills. And for an executive especially, it's important to see a little bit, have you worked in my if I'm a recruiter, do you have experience? A lot of times companies want industry experience. That's very important for companies, because they go with the train of thought that if you work for similar industries, you would be a better fit. Again, I would probably challenge that and say you can probably be a good fit even if you worked in different industries, depending on your personality and how fast you learn information. But the general thing, again, most recruiters will want people in similar fields. And there's not much you can do about that. But what you can do is, by having it on top, is focus on the industries that would want you, and eliminate the ones where it's not worth your time applying. And it's also helping you find what I called your positioning. So if you work on your profile, you understand yourself better. You know where your assets are. You know that you worked 10 years in pharma, for example, and now you're looking for a job in the same sector. So you immediately know that your main target should probably be the pharma sector. Again, it sounds very basic, but a lot of people go and spread themselves thin a little bit, where their real value is within this sector. And knowing that recruiters would want to hire people in that same industry. So focus really, if you're looking for a job and you want to shorten, which is probably the case for most people, you want to shorten the time between looking and getting a contract, is go with what you know well. So if you're a professional and you work 10 years in an industry, that's what your market positioning should be within that industry, so that you can quickly get a job again and not waste your time on trying to convince other industries. Now, if you want to change careers, then that's a different thing. If you say, I don't want this industry anymore, and I keep getting contacted for this industry, and that's an issue, then you have to do a rebranding. That's a little bit more complicated. Then you have to do your rebranding on LinkedIn. Then you have to do the rebranding on your resume to come up with a profile where you're going to mention your new project. But that means that you would have worked on your project to know where you're going, because what most people are doing is that they think, well, let me put all my stuff on my resume and let the recruiters figure out where I could be a good fit. Unfortunately, it doesn't really work that way. People are not going to think, okay, where can Susie work? She's worked 10 years in pharma, and obviously she doesn't want pharma anymore, but I don't know what to do with her resume. And that's also why you're always getting contacts. When people say, I keep getting contacted for the same thing, is because you haven't worked on showing what you want. So people by default, they will see, oh, okay, she's worked in pharma, so that's why I'm going to call her. So you need to do this work for your social media and for your resume, where you're positioning yourself. No one is going to position you. And that's the same with getting a salary increase, getting a change of career, anything that you want to achieve, you have to do it yourself. And then people out there will start popping out and offering you things that match your profile. But if you haven't worked yourself on your project, on the formatting of your resume and putting the things in the right format that recruiters can read, they're not going to try to put an hour on your resume to figure out, well, she's worked in 10 years in pharma and she's done this and she's done that. And oh yeah, I should offer a job in luxury. If you want a job in luxury and you work 10 years in pharma, then you need to do, again, a rebranding. And that's a little bit more than just a short streaming online. But that's just to give you a little bit the basics of how you need to apprehend the whole thing. How do you need to work on your project? So again, number one is to number two is to format your resume well. Now, number three is to work on the content of the resume. So the format is important, but the content is also important. Because if you format everything well, but the content is very shallow, or it's just putting words out there, a lot of time what people ask me is, what are the buzzwords basically, or what should I put out there to go through the online tracking systems? There's no real fast trick of let me put some buzzwords and then my resume will be wanted by everybody. Again, it's a little bit more work than that. To be wanted by, it's not being wanted by all the companies, it's being searched for the companies that match your current project. So if you work 10 years in pharma and now you want to go into luxury, let's say you want to work for top companies in luxury in Switzerland or in France or wherever, or in other countries, then you need to understand what these organizations are looking for in terms of skill set and profile, and then reformat and write the content that works on that project. So again, the content is going to be very much mirroring what these job descriptions out there want. So that's why if you just put all your experience in pharma and just throw everything out there with a few buzzwords, it's not going to work, because it's not the buzzwords of the luxury sector. So each time you're moving jobs, actually, it makes sense to think about, okay, now I'm changing, let's say, jobs within the same industry, which again is a lot easier. Then what are those job descriptions actually mentioning out there on the web, so that I can look at them and try to mirror to some extent those jobs. So I read the job description very well, look at the words that are being used, and don't do that just for one, do that for at least a good sample, so that you start understanding a little bit the culture of this organization, what it is that they want. Where are they putting the emphasis? What are the tools that they're looking for? Because if you worked on a tool for 10 years that's not even existing within this industry, it's not going to help. So each time you're looking for a position, look at the job descriptions, look at the words used, and use those words or even something similar so that you can be picked. So it's not about, okay, the buzzwords for getting recruited out there is this, and that. Actually, it works a little bit like SEO. So people, those of you who are in maybe working with marketing online or IT, you would probably understand this part a bit more, the background of it. But basically, when you're trying to be visible online, it's called SEO. What you're doing is you want to find words that are not so used. So if you go with words that are used a lot, so let's say your industry, you want to put that you're digital marketer, And digital marketer, it's so used already, and the web is inundated with these keywords. Then you're going to compete with a lot of people because everyone is using the same keyword. So a lot of times what you would want to do if you're opening a website, for example, or your marketing online, etc., and that's why I say people in marketing would understand this part very well, you would advise your clients to use words that are not so used but that are very much niche. So instead of putting digital marketing, you would have digital marketing for pharma or something a little bit more. Or so you're trying to find a synonym basically of the same thing, but that's not a word that's used yet. It's a little bit competitive because now it's like the .com, all the different .coms domains are used. So it's a lot of work. I know each time I think about a domain, something I want to do online, all the domains are taken. So it's the same thing with SEO. All the domains are taken, all the words are taken, and it's going to be the same with your resume. So if you have a resume where the keywords are the same as everybody, so you have digital marketing, or you have an IT specialist or accountant or something like that, you're going to compete with everybody else that has the same resume. Now, if you find some keywords for your resume that are very much niche, that are going to be maybe specific to, at the same time, specific to your industry, but also specific to your particular experience, is going to be more interesting. So as opposed to saying, oh, I'm just going to put accountant for banks or something like that, then maybe as far as keywords, you have accounting and you have Geneva and something else, So you have to find some keywords that maybe you're using the geographic location, or maybe you're using a piece that you were doing within accounting that is very specific, but that's going to be attractive for other employers. Maybe, I don't know from the top of my head, but maybe you were working with partners or something like that, or you were building a tool in accounting, so you have also a little bit of IT with your skill set. So if you built an online system to be used internally for accounting, that could be interesting. So I call that where you have the profession plus plus. So you are an accountant plus plus, plus you have some maybe digital skills, maybe some IT skills. That becomes interesting now. So that you can use for your online application or your LinkedIn profile, where if you want to be selected as maybe a bit more higher ratings, then you would use those keywords. So again, don't worry about finding the right buzzwords, because those would be too general anyways. Rather think about your profile, your specific experience. That's what's going to get you the job. So whether you're applying online to a job board, or whether you're going to have your resume somewhere, maybe on the internet or posted in different platforms, think about adding some keywords in your resume that are going to be very specific, that not many people are using. So again, that's a little bit tricky, because when you work on your resume, sometimes it's hard to be a bit creative with that. You're a little bit in the online marketing profession there. It's a little bit particular. But then there's also platforms online where you can actually figure out, based on your resume, which are your best keywords. So it becomes, again, a little bit more technical there, but you can find that very easily now by typing on Google, keywords, or getting keywords out of my resume. There's going to be a lot of platforms now where you just copy paste your resume and they will show you what are the keywords on your resume. So you don't have to figure it out for yourself. The tool is going to go through your resume, analyze it, and come up with the keywords that are going to be fit for you. Again, the limit to that is that because it's automated, it's going to be more general. Nothing like the human brain to actually come up with something a bit more creative. So I guess the general analysis of that, or the conclusion of what I just said, is be a bit different. Because if you use something that everybody else is doing, it's going to make you an average candidate. Whereas if you have a little bit more research on the job description, a little bit more research on your keywords, so basically a little bit more effort put into your resume, you're going to be a bit more a better applicant in a way. So that's how you become a better applicant, is you have a clear resume. You make sure that it's not too wordy either, maximum 2 pages. you have worked on your profile and you've actually written a good profile. Now, again, there's services for all these things where you can get some support to write a better type of profile so that it makes sense for recruiters. I tend to have a template for that, basically, where I also have the wording. So in my template, it's not only, I basically do everything, make it everything easier for candidates. You have the template, but you also have the filled out information. So it gives you an idea of the wording, the formula to write what it is that is going to make sense. But again, this is just a template, so you have to still put in your own wording in it. It gives you a structure of how to phrase it in general, how to have the different portions. So under experiences, for example, you would have a certain format with bullet points and achievements, and you have some wording put in there, but it's good to also put your own wording so it becomes your document. And again, that's what's going to be a selling point for you, is because you have your own document and it's made by you for you. So that's the best marketing, is actually to have something that's special, that's homemade, probably the best product you've experienced in your life. I know for me, when I do something on my own, sometimes I feel that it's a little bit more my way, and it's the outcome tends to be a bit more to my taste anyway. Okay, I have a question here. So which tool do you use to analyze the keywords? There's one called Wordle, like Word with LE at the end. I will just put it, I'll see if it comes across in the chat. So Wordle is one of them. But again, each month almost you have those types of things just pop out, those, whether they're online resume building or analysis of your resume. Each month almost there's a different one. So you can just type on Google, resume analysis keywords, and it will come up. So Wordle is a good one, but there's lots of other ones. So, and they're not hard to find. So I just put it here, Wordle. So yeah, that's the tool. Whenever you're looking for a tool to do something, just type on Google. So it sounds very simple, but you're looking for resume templates. So you're looking for resume analysis. So there's lots of things like that where you can find. Now it's also I've regrouped in a document that's 4 pages long, actually, all those small things, because I thought that's easy. Again, it's less time wasted looking on the internet. So I've regrouped a 4-pager where you have links of job boards, links of tools like this, resume templates. So basically, I've tried to regroup all kinds of things into a document. And that's something that I share when we do coaching together, whether it be, long-term coaching, or even if you book a session with me, I will share that also. But it's not just sharing the document, it's giving you also the how to use it and how to make the most out of your job search, so that you're not by yourself trying to figure it out. And I find is a lot better, because if you have the tool but you don't know how to use it, or maybe you're not making the most out of it, it's not the same results. So I find that walking people through during a session, like a resume review or a cover letter review. So it's the same thing with your cover letter. So I have a template where it matches the resume, color coded. The wording also is prepared, so you don't have to think about what do I say in my cover letter. I have all the wording put together, and you just need to edit a few portions of it. So you're saving probably 70% of your time there. And I'm also telling you what needs to go on that cover letter. What are the important things, as opposed to things that are repetition of your resume, where the wording is not exactly what I would do. And same thing, I don't want people to just take the template and just send it to the recruiter, where it's going to be, again, very general and not tailored to you, so it's less efficient. So the idea is to take the general spirit of it, the general idea, but then tailor it to be more efficient, tailor it with your own wording and your own experience and your key skills. So what do you think about using JobScan to check your resume against ITS? Yeah, that's also another tool for sure. JobScan, yeah, it gives you some general guidelines. Again, all those are tools, so it gives you an idea. Now, what's great about the JobScan is that it tells you the percentage of chance. So if it says you have 20% matching, probably you're not going to be picked by the recruiter. Now, if you're 90% or above, then yeah, of course, it increases your chances. It shows that your resume is well tailored to that job description. So yeah, it's a tool. Again, it's a resource. So it helps you figure it out. I know on LinkedIn as well, when you're applying, it will tell you a bunch of data as well, especially if you have the premium. It will tell you how you fare with other candidates as well. So now you have a lot of statistics. If you have the premium, it gives you a lot of statistics on how you fare as well with competition. Also it gives you those kinds of data. How do you match with the job description, etc. So you get that now as the premium package on LinkedIn. But that's when you're applying on LinkedIn. If you're applying outside, obviously, something like JobScan would be available. But you can JobScanalize yourself without the tool, where, again, if you've put some of the element from the job description, all it is just it's checking the wording. So if you've done the work of putting the wording from the job description inside your resume, chances are that you're going to fare quite high. But again, I would say what I'm sharing with you today is the spirit of having a great application, a great resume, starting with the right basics, where you have the right content, the right format that is fit to your industry, fit to the culture of the organization. But then there's an element of, who is going to have that resume in their hands? How do they think? What are they looking for? And then it's like, do you have it in the right areas? Because probably if you just put your resume out in the job boards or in the platforms online, it's probably not going to be as visible as if you were actively sharing your information. So, and again, it's not about sending resumes left and right to recruiters who are already busy, but it's about having an actual job search strategy where you also do some spontaneous applications. You're also sharing your resume with a network. Again, not immediately. There's also the step-by-step, of getting to know someone before you bombard your resume. But I just shared that yesterday within a session where you warm up to your network, and when you see that the communication is flowing and the person is interested and there's a benefit, a mutual benefit. So a great way, for example, would be to think about your network right now. Who could you share that piece of information, which is the resume, with? And start with your well-established people that know you well, that reply to you on a regular basis. For those of you who already have that, which was the case of my client, she already had a good base. But if you're saying, I don't even have that, maybe I'm new to the job world, I'm a recent graduate, or I'm a young professional, I'm just starting out, I don't have an acquired network. I know a few people, but I'm not even sure they would reply to me. That's why, again, my work is so interesting and so different, because not everyone is going to be exactly in the same place. You have some people, again, who start from really base zero, like students or people who are recent professionals. People who are maybe mid-career and they already have an established network, so they already have a bit more to work with to share their resume. And people who need to warm up to people, they have a network, but they haven't really done anything with it and they're really far from it. So it's a different topic for another day. I will talk about that on Wednesday, how to create career opportunities as well. And I always talk about networking, but basically different folks, different stages of networking, different strategies. And I'm trying very hard. I would love to put that into a like a one video or one how to do. But what I'm finding is that it's difficult because, again, everyone is in a different space. So the student who's just out of school, the young professional, is not going to go about networking the same way as the established professional, maybe who's trying to change careers, or the executive. There's also the whole concept of your reputation, and some industries are very, very, especially if you talk about the Swiss market, some industries are very private, and it doesn't make sense sometimes to talk to so many people, and you want to be careful about how you market yourself, again, for reputation purposes, for secrecy, for maybe you want to manage relationships as well, that one person is not upset, you talk to the other person, because everyone knows each other, especially if it's a small industry. Very few, which is the case sometimes, very few actors in that industry, so they know each other. So there's a whole aspect of, again, depending on where you are, the young professional who's targeting the multinational is in a different networking stage and job marketing themselves than the person who's a senior executive, maybe where they have 4 companies they can work for, basically at that stage, with their level of experience. So that's why it's hard to have a one piece or one size fits it all. And that's why I'd rather, and I find that the results are much better if I work individually with somebody, because then we look at where they're at in their life, what they've done, and what they have as a network, and work with what they have already and build from that. Because it's not the same for everybody. So, and how you communicate with your network is also important. And of course, you don't want to send, even if it's the best resume ever, you don't want to be cold sending resumes to everybody, even if they're within your network. So I would say the only exception to that, where you could be a bit more straightforward and direct with your resumes, if you know the person very well, maybe it's someone you talk to almost on a daily basis, and you're almost friends, I would say, at that stage. I know there's a few people in my network, if I look at the communication I have, contacts I have, that we're on a more of a friend basis, where I would not hesitate to say, here's my resume, and let me know if you hear of anything type. But that's very few people that I'm on that level of being, I would say, almost to a friend level, and not so much of a business contact. But if it's a business contact, then there's definitely a how to get there. People usually don't want to get resumes in their inbox and feel that they have pressure to do something with it. And even recruiters sometimes, unless you're the exact resume that they want at that moment, either they don't know what to do with it, or, and again, it's hard to know how to handle sometimes. They don't know what to do with it. They don't know who to give it to. If it's an employee within a company, then they don't really know. It happened actually with someone in my clientele, where they had a contact within an industry, but the person didn't really know themselves how to help, because it puts them also on the stage where they have to do something with the resume, and they're putting their name also out on the line for you. That if they pass it on, it's also their reputation. Now you become a referral. So there's lots of things there. It's not just about passing a buck. It's a resume. You're putting your name out. Where if you're sending someone's resume, you're putting your name where this person is linked to you somehow. And if the resume is, let's say the person gets hired and it's a disaster, then that person would probably feel that they're faulty to some extent. So that's what you have to think about sometimes when you think, well, how come people are not so open to sharing resumes and putting resumes out there? It's because it's not just putting, again, a piece of paper. It's more about you're putting your name on the line for individuals that you don't know, you've never heard of. And it could be cultural also, where, for example, in the US or in English speaking countries, the whole recruitment, I think, is different. So there's a different type of communication. Maybe the resumes get passed a little bit faster, but is that better quality? Switzerland is known for quality, and there's a form of vetting people, which I find is very good, because the vetting process works very well. And that's why usually people surround themselves with people that they have links to or were referred to, because there's a process of vetting. And then the result of it is that less chance of person not working in the job very well or having to fire them. So I find that putting more effort at the beginning, where you're really vetting the person, even if it takes a little bit longer, and you're putting a real process in place, but you want to maximize the quality of the resumes that come through, as opposed to, well, yeah, maybe a bit more of a flowing style, like in the English-speaking countries, where everything is maybe a bit more, the exchanges are a little bit more fluid, but that means that maybe you hire people fast. So it's a different philosophy. You hire fast, but then I know in some countries in Europe, you fire slow, because there's different elements to it, that you can't fire people easily, with laws, etc. So I would say in Switzerland, it's more the hire slow, and also fire. I think it depends, but really definitely hire slow. So you have to keep that in mind also when you're writing your resume, or when you're applying, is that it takes a while. People will hire slow, but think about it as a quality aspect, that, and for you as well, because I know I've been hired fast in the past, but it wasn't great for me nor the company. We weren't a good match. So in a way, sometimes being hired slow, there's a check on both ends, where you see also if it's the right fit for you. Are you going to be happy there? Did you meet all the people in the organization? Do you find that they're all great people to work with? I mean, you're going to spend a lot of time in your job, more than 8 hours, probably, for most of you. So, there's definitely, I would say, some element of making the process work on both ends, that it's not just a piece of paper again, and you just want to get the first open slot to work there, even though it could be tempting from just wanting to get things done, and everyone needs a job in the end. But yeah, but in a way, hiring slow it's great, because you get to know the recruiter, you get to know people work there. And trust me, for someone, and I talk about that when I do my webinars once a month, I explain my story, my path, where I've been hired fast. I work for a lot of organizations. Most of them were not the right fit for me from the beginning, and it would have saved me time and effort and energy, and also from the company perspective, for me not to be there, because I didn't have a place there. I think with social media now, what I like about social media is that you can see the person's profile a bit beyond the resume. So if recruiters do sourcing, for example, they can already find out a lot about you by looking at your social media. They can see a little bit what kind of person you are, and I think the quality part then becomes a bit better, because they can see if you could be a good match, if you belong maybe to groups that you show that you're really passionate about a topic. So, for example, if I were to hire someone in IT, in web development, and I have the choice between a candidate that just sent me a resume, and it's nice, but that's all I have, experience and a resume. And then I have a profile, same resume basically, but I look on the social media and I see this person belongs to a lot of groups in web development. They actually have built their own group. They're very active. Their presence online is huge. I would probably go for that candidate, because I know they're really passionate. They're full-fledged forward with that topic. They're probably going to be more enthusiastic about the job. And it's not just a job that they're doing because it's the trend right now and they just want to get that profile. It's someone who's really passionate about web development, and they actually want to become an authority in that. So I'm definitely, I would say, almost guaranteed that it's a great profile, and they would probably be a good benefit for my organization, a great resource. So that's how you find the quality of the individual. That's what I use. It's my defaulting recruiter mindset and lens there. But when I look at people that I want to work with, that I want to partner with, I'm not hiring per se, but I have hired volunteers before, for events and things like that. I would not just look at the resume. I would look at what they're doing online, whether they're active, and they're really passionate about the field, because there's nothing better than someone who loves what they do. And, then it's also a better team spirit also, because if you put them in a team and you have someone who's passionate and they love what they do, it's probably going to reflect also on the other ones that may be not as motivated. So you definitely don't want to recruit a resume. You want to recruit a profile, a character, someone who's actually good at what they do and passionate about it and puts the efforts. So when you're working on your application, you're building your resume and your cover letter, just keep in mind to look at it as just one tool, just like the someone just mentioned the job scan. It's just one tool amongst others. So resume is one of your toolkit when you're applying for work. But if you don't do the other things, so it's looking at things maybe from a higher stand there. If you're not doing the other things right, even if you have the best resume on the planet, you know, and it's great, it's well written, well formatted, and it has all the bells and whistles, as I say, it's not going to measure to someone who's actually put in the passion, have developed their online profile, and is well networked or well connected, rather. So this is just, I would say, my summary of all this information I shared with you today. Yes, you can do a great application, but keep in mind that it's only part of the puzzle. If you're not doing the other things, then again, you're not making the most out of your search. I have another thing here. If I'm currently learning a language and taking a course, should I mention it in my resume from A2 to B2? Yeah, so learning languages is great. So if you're in Switzerland, obviously it's a must. But if you're in other countries, it's also great because I know in the earlier part of my career, it helped me tremendously to speak English, French, and Spanish because then it shows also you're multilingual. Some companies just love to have multilingual people just because they want people with potential, I would say. If you speak languages, you become also a bit more worldly, international, etc. So learning languages is good. It definitely should be on your resume, even if it's in progress. So let's say even if you're still at the early level, like A2, I know it's very early level, but it's showing that you're making an effort, which some people don't even do that. So the other thing that you have to look at is how much mastery do you need to perform the job? So if you're looking at a position where you know there's going to be a lot of contacting people and lots of speaking and so forth in the language, and you're in that A2, B2, that's where I would question it. But it really depends. I mean, let's say you're a web developer and your job is to be behind a screen or you're coding or more the IT field. Probably you just need a language to speak to, people who work with you locally or to make a call or something like that. But you're going to be working if you work for a multinational and all you do is work online and your main job is to code or something like that, probably the language becomes less important than someone who's going to be a sales rep or, again, more client facing. So think when you're thinking about, should I apply for this job or not, even though I don't have all the languages, think about what you would be doing with those languages. So try to understand what the job description would require. Are you going to be talking in French or in Swiss German most of the time? And I would say then you probably need to be very fluent. Or is it just something that you work for a Swiss firm, for example, and it would be better that you speak Swiss German because the people who work with you are Swiss German? So I'll give my example. When I was working for Lexmark a few years ago, I was working for different European offices, and one of which was Talville, next to Zurich. And so Talville is by the lake next to Zurich, and I had to go there for work. The company was English speaking, obviously, Lexmark, American, but locally everyone spoke Swiss German because all the people in the office were locals, most of them. So the fact that I didn't speak Swiss German wasn't a handicap doing my job because I would go there, meet the head of the office. So we would speak English, he would speak English. The job itself was mostly in English anyways. But where I think it was a bit complicated is, for example, you go out to lunch, then everyone speaks Swiss German. So to be part of a team, it's great to speak the language as well. So that sometimes when you think, well, why didn't the recruiter call me? You have to think sometimes about the office spirit. And sometimes it's great to have everyone speak Swiss German, because if you do team building or if you do coffees and lunches and things like that, to be part of the team and everyone speaks Swiss German, you would feel a little bit out of the loop. So that's what happened to me. I was out of conversations. I was just listening, but I couldn't keep up. So therefore, you put yourself almost, you're outside a little bit. So it wasn't really a barrier to doing my job because I was still able to talk to the head of the office and do my work. Now, in the terms of, it's more of a team building type of thing. If you have people who are not fluent, then you just have to keep in mind that it's going to be a little bit more complicated. And same thing with the French part. If everyone starts speaking French and you have a few people who don't speak French, those would probably feel that they're out of the team a little bit. So either everyone has to speak English, but then, you know, when you're in front of colleagues and they're all same culture as you, and it's normal that people default back to the local language. So when you think, well, why is the company asking for the language? That's probably one of the reasons, is to include everybody. And even though you think, well, the company is working in English, but for team building purposes and to have a good spirit, I think sometimes it's great to have people who speak the language. It can be included in the conversations or when you have team meetings and things like that. So try to get to a point where you're at least fluent in the language, even though you can't really code in the language or you can't write reports in the language, but to be able to have conversational level where you can go out to lunch and be participating. So I would say probably up to C1 would be ideal, but B2 is already getting there. And show that you're working on it. So even though you're not there, that you really have the intent. So it's all in the intent. So when you meet the recruiter, show what your intent is, that you want to stay in Switzerland and work there and work for this particular company. And I know candidates that I had that were successful is because they were super focused in one or two companies maximum. And I've seen this. It's really something I've observed and analyzed with different candidates. The ones that were successful sent very few resumes, very targeted resumes. So they had a couple of companies that they were really focusing on because they were the specific ones that they needed to get to where they wanted in specific industries. And they just kept at it, you know, for those companies and really understood from a T, I would say, what these companies wanted, and also continued learning the language so that by the time they get into the organization, and you can keep learning at that stage, you know, you can keep taking courses to get you there and things like that. So it's really about the bigger goal, you know. That's why I'm all about goal setting. You can hear that from me a lot, because I find if you have a goal, well, it's great for your mental well-being because you know where you're going. It's also better in general. It makes you a more productive person. I think if you have a goal, and then every day that you work on your job search and you build your resume, you can think, okay, what is my goal? Oh, yeah, that's right. I want to work for pharma in Switzerland, and keep that in mind. And then you know why you're doing this every day, and you become super focused on what pharma wants. Or I say pharma, but it could be, again, luxury, or it could be not-for-profit or what have you. If you know what it is that you want, and you're super focused on it, and you analyze what those companies want, then everything else becomes very easy. So this is where to start, really. It's about, what do you want? Where are those organizations? Are they even in Switzerland? Sometimes I talk to individuals that I want to work in Switzerland. Well, why? Is it really the best thing for you? Why don't you work in another country where, you know, there would be a better fit for where you're at in your career right now, and better choice of jobs? Because when you get to a certain level, obviously it's like a pyramid. You know, you have, at the beginning, you have a lot of openings, and then as you grow into your career, you have less openings. So it's just reality of it. So sometimes understanding why you're doing something, because if you keep at it and you're like, well, it's not working, maybe you just don't have the right goal. Maybe there's no market for you where you're looking. So all these things also become part of the equation. And it's not just about having a great resume. So I'm just looking to see if there's any more questions. If you want to ask, you can also ask the question below, because it will be posted online. So if you watch this a bit later today or even during the week, feel free to post below, catch this video and ask your question. I will post also below all the different things that I mentioned today. So again, it was great to thank you for MKB for asking questions and participating today. Hope you get a lot of value from watching this video and it helps you with your projects. And again, feel free to contact me anytime. I'll do a live like this next Monday. So it will be posted soon. Feel free to also participate next Monday. Thank you. Have a great day. Bye.